The baby's scream sliced through the hum of the plane engines like a knife through silk. Daniel Grayson pressed his palms against his temples, eyes squeezed shut, willing the sound to stop. It didn't. If anything, Ella's cries grew louder, more desperate, echoing through the first-class cabin like an alarm that wouldn't quit. "Sir, can I get you anything? Perhaps some warm milk for the little one?" A flight attendant hovered nearby, her smile strained at the edges. Daniel didn't look up. "We've tried milk. We've tried everything." He bounced Ella gently in his arms, but her tiny fists kept flailing, her face red and streaked with tears. Around him, he could feel the weight of disapproving stares. A woman in seat 2A sighed loudly and adjusted her sleeping mask. A businessman across the aisle muttered something under his breath and turned up the volume on his noise-canceling headphones. Daniel Grayson was used to controlling rooms. Board meetings bent to his will. Stock prices shifted when he spoke. He'd built a tech empire worth $8 billion before he turned 32. But right now, holding his 2-year-old daughter as she screamed herself breathless, he felt more powerless than he'd ever felt in his entire life. "Maybe she's uncomfortable," another attendant suggested, crouching beside him with a plush airline blanket. "Sometimes the pressure changes during takeoff can upset little ones." "I know what pressure does," Daniel snapped, then immediately regretted his tone. "I'm sorry. I don't know what she needs." The truth sat heavy in his chest, a weight he'd been carrying for 6 months now. Sarah would have known. Sarah always knew. When Ella had colic as a newborn, Sarah would walk her around their penthouse for hours, humming some melody Daniel could never quite remember. When Ella had trouble sleeping, Sarah would read to her in that soft voice that made even Daniel feel safe. But Sarah was gone. The cancer had taken her so fast that Daniel still sometimes turned to tell her something before remembering she wasn't there. And now he was alone on a flight to San Francisco with a screaming toddler and absolutely no idea what he was doing. "Sir, I really think we should. I'll pay," Daniel said suddenly, looking up at the attendant. His eyes were bloodshot, his expensive suit rumpled. "I'll pay someone, anyone, $1,000 to make her stop crying. 5,000. Name your price." The attendant's expression shifted from professional concern to something that looked almost like pity. "Sir, it doesn't work that way. She's just a baby. She probably misses her mother." The words hit Daniel like a physical blow. He turned away, jaw clenched, and looked out the window at the clouds below. Beside him, Ella continued to wail, her small body shaking with the force of her sobs. 20 rows back, past the curtain that separated first class from premium economy, past another curtain that divided premium from regular coach, a 9-year-old boy named Malik pressed his face against the window and watched the clouds drift by like cotton candy. "Mama, look how small everything is," he whispered, eyes wide with wonder. Amina smiled at her son, reaching over to squeeze his hand. "I know, baby. It's something, isn't it?" This was their first time flying, their first time leaving Atlanta, really, except for the occasional trip to visit Amina's sister in Birmingham. But Malik had won the Jefferson Scholarship, a full ride to a special summer program at a school in California for gifted students. When the acceptance letter came, Amina had cried for an hour straight. Her son, her brilliant boy, was going places she'd only dreamed of. They'd saved for months to afford these tickets, even the cheap ones. Amina worked 2 jobs, one as a nursing assistant during the day and another cleaning offices at night. Malik helped where he could, tutoring younger kids in the neighborhood for $5 an hour. Together, they'd scraped enough together for this moment. "You think they have peanuts on planes? Like in the movies?" Malik asked, practically bouncing in his seat. "Sit still, baby. And yes, probably." Amina smoothed down his collar, even though it didn't need smoothing. He looked so handsome in the button-up shirt they'd found at Goodwill, the one that was only slightly too big in the shoulders. "Remember, when we get there, you be on your best behavior. You represent more than just yourself." "I know, Mama." Malik had heard this speech 100 times. Be respectful. Be twice as good. Make them remember you for the right reasons. That's when he heard it. The crying. It was faint at first, barely audible over the engine noise and the chatter of passengers around them. But Malik had good ears. He'd always been able to hear things others missed. He tilted his head, listening. It was a baby. A very upset baby. "Mama, you hear that?" Amina was busy reading the safety card, lips moving silently as she absorbed every instruction. Hear what, honey? That baby. She sounds really sad. Babies cry on planes, Malik. It's normal. The pressure hurts their ears. But Malik kept listening, and the more he listened, the more his chest ached. He knew that kind of crying. It wasn't just discomfort or tiredness. It was the kind of crying that came from somewhere deeper. Lost crying. Scared crying. He'd heard it before from his baby cousin Marcus after Aunt Sheila passed away last year. Marcus would cry like that at night, especially when Uncle James tried to put him to bed. Nothing worked, until one day Malik had an idea. His backpack sat tucked under the seat in front of him, and he reached down to pull it onto his lap. "What are you doing?" Amina asked, glancing over. "Just checking something." Inside the backpack, beneath his change of clothes and the sandwich Amina had packed for later, was the small wooden rattle. Malik had made it himself in Mr. Patterson's workshop class, back when the community center still had funding for after-school programs. It wasn't fancy, just some smooth wood pieces that clicked together when you shook them, but he'd sanded it for hours until there wasn't a single rough edge. He'd given the first one to Marcus, and somehow it had worked. The clicking sound, the smooth wood, the way it fit perfectly in small hands. Marcus had stopped crying and started playing, his face transforming from anguish to curiosity. Malik had made another one after that, just in case. He'd brought it with him on this trip, thinking maybe he could give it to some kid at the summer program who might need it. But now, hearing that baby cry, he felt a pull in his chest he couldn't ignore. "Mama," he said quietly, "I think I can help." Amina looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the determination in his eyes. The same look he got when he was working through a math problem that everyone else had given up on. "Help who, baby?" "The baby that's crying. I have something that might work." "Malik." Amina's voice dropped low, the way it did when she was about to say something important. "That baby is probably in first class. That's not our section. We can't just..." "But what if she really needs help? What if nobody there knows what to do?" "Baby, those are people with money. They have everything they need. They don't need a little boy from Coach coming up there." Malik looked down at the rattle in his hands, turning it over slowly. Marcus had everything too. Uncle James bought him every toy in the store. But the only thing that worked was this. Amina felt her heart squeeze. Her son had such a good heart, too good sometimes for a world that didn't always appreciate it. She thought about all the talks they'd had, about knowing your place, about not making white people uncomfortable, about being careful. But she also thought about the verse from church that morning, the one about letting your light shine. "You really think you can help?" she asked. "I can try, Mama, that's all." She studied his face for a long moment, then sighed. "Okay, but you ask permission first. You hear me? You find a flight attendant and ask politely, and if they say no, you come right back here, no arguing." Malik's face lit up. "Yes, ma'am." He unbuckled his seatbelt and stood, clutching the rattle in one hand. The plane had leveled off now, and the seatbelt sign was off. He made his way up the aisle, past passengers reading magazines and watching movies on small screens. Some glanced at him curiously. A few smiled. When he reached the curtain separating economy from premium, he hesitated. He'd never been on the other side of one of these curtains. It felt like a barrier to another world. A flight attendant appeared, a young woman with her hair pulled back in a tight bun. She looked tired but smiled when she saw him. "Hi there, sweetheart. Do you need something? Are you lost?" "No, ma'am. I can hear a baby crying up there." He pointed toward first class. "I think maybe I can help." The attendant's smile faltered slightly. "Oh, honey, that's very sweet, but I don't think..." "I helped my cousin when he cried like that. After his mama died, I made him something that worked." Malik held up the rattle. "It's not fancy, but it might help." The attendant looked at the simple wooden toy, then back at Malik's earnest face. Behind her, the crying continued, louder now. She'd been back to first class 3 times already, and nothing was working. The father looked like he was about to have a breakdown, and some of the other passengers were starting to complain loudly. "Please," Malik said, "just let me try." Something in his voice, or maybe in his eyes, made her decision. "Okay," she said finally, "come with me. But if the father says no, you could come right back. Deal?" "Deal." She led him through premium economy, where passengers glanced up from their tablets and wine glasses and then through another curtain into first class. Malik had never seen anything like it. The seats were huge, practically beds, and there was so much space. Crystal glasses sat on wooden trays. The carpet was thick under his worn sneakers. But he barely noticed any of that because the crying was so much louder here. At the front, in seat 1A, he could see a man in a dark suit holding a small girl. The man's shoulders were hunched, his whole body tense with frustration and exhaustion. "Mr. Grayson," the attendant said gently, "there's a young man here who thinks he might be able to help." Daniel looked up, and for a moment his expression was pure irritation. His eyes swept over Malik, taking in the too big shirt, the nervous stance, the piece of wood in his small hands. "Are you serious right now? I said I'd pay a professional, not—" He stopped himself, but the words hung in the air anyway. Malik felt his face grow hot, but he didn't step back. "Sir, I know I'm just a kid, but my cousin cried just like this after his mama passed, and I made him something that helped. I was thinking maybe it could help your little girl too." Daniel's expression changed. The irritation faded, replaced by something rawer. "Her mother passed 6 months ago," he said quietly, and his voice cracked on the word mother. "I'm real sorry, sir," Malik said, and he meant it. He knew what that kind of loss looked like because he'd seen it in Uncle James's eyes, heard it in Marcus's cries. Sometimes babies just need something that reminds them everything's going to be okay, something simple. Around them, the first-class cabin had gone quiet. Other passengers were watching now, some with curiosity, others with skepticism. The woman in 2A had lifted her sleep mask to watch. The businessman had paused his movie. Daniel looked at his daughter, whose face was soaked with tears, her little chest heaving with sobs. He'd tried everything. Every toy he'd brought, every technique the nannies had taught him, every piece of advice from the parenting books he'd been too busy to read until Sarah died. Nothing worked. "Okay," he said finally. "Okay, try." Malik stepped closer slowly, the way you approach a scared animal. He held out the rattle where Ella could see it and gave it a gentle shake. The wooden pieces clicked together, a soft, rhythmic sound. Ella's crying hitched, just for a second, but it was enough. Malik shook the rattle again, a little pattern this time. Click, click. Pause. Click, click, click. He started humming too, soft and low, a melody his mama used to sing when he couldn't sleep. The baby's eyes, red and swollen from crying, focused on the wooden toy. Her sobs came slower now, broken up by hiccups. Malik kept the rhythm steady, moving the rattle in a gentle circle. "It's okay, little sister," he whispered. "See? It makes a nice sound, don't it?" He shook it again, and this time Ella reached for it. Her tiny fingers wrapped around the smooth wood, and when Malik helped her shake it, the corners of her mouth lifted. Not quite a smile, but something close. The cabin held its breath. Malik kept humming, kept moving the rattle in that slow, steady rhythm, and then it happened. Ella laughed. A real laugh, bright and pure, cutting through the tension like sunlight through clouds. She shook the rattle herself, delighted by the sound, and laughed again. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. He hadn't heard her laugh like that since before Sarah got sick. The sound of it broke something open in his chest, something that had been locked tight for months. Around them, passengers started clapping. Soft at first, then louder. The woman in 2A was crying. The businessman had his hand over his mouth, his own eyes wet. "How did you?" Daniel couldn't finish the sentence. He was staring at Malik like he'd just witnessed a miracle. "Sometimes they just need something real, you know?" Malik said, still keeping his voice soft so he wouldn't startle Ella. "Not something expensive or fancy, just something made with care, something that says somebody thought about them." Ella was playing with the rattle now, turning it over in her hands, fascinated by how the pieces moved. She brought it to her mouth, and Malik said quickly, "It's safe. I sanded all the edges real smooth and used wood glue that's non-toxic. Mr. Patterson taught us about safety in workshop." Daniel looked at this 9-year-old boy who had just done what a dozen adults, thousands of dollars in toys, and all his power couldn't do. "What's your name?" "Malik, sir. Malik Johnson." "I'm Daniel." He shifted Ella in his arms, and she immediately reached for Malik again, wanting him to shake the rattle some more. "Daniel Grayson, and this is Ella." "She's real pretty," Malik said, making a funny face that made Ella giggle. "How old is she?" 2. Just turned 2 last month. Daniel's voice was rough with emotion. We had this big party planned, but I canceled it. I couldn't face all those people without. He trailed off. My mama says grief is just love with nowhere to go, Malik offered. My cousin Marcus, he was one when his mama died. He's 3 now. Still asks for her sometimes. But Uncle James says it gets easier to carry. Daniel nodded, unable to speak for a moment. This child understood more about what he was going through than anyone in his world of business associates and shallow condolences. The flight attendant who had brought Malik forward touched his shoulder gently. That was really something, sweetheart. But maybe we should let you get back to your seat now. Wait, Daniel said quickly. He looked at Malik. Where are you sitting? In the back, sir. With my mama. We're in economy. You're traveling with your mother? Where are you headed? San Francisco. I won a scholarship to this summer program for science and math. It's at some fancy school. My mama saved up for 6 months for the plane tickets. Daniel's mind was already working, shifting into the mode that had built his empire. The Jefferson Scholarship? Malik's eyes went wide. Yes, sir. You know about it? My company helps fund it. Daniel looked at Ella, who was now contentedly playing with the rattle, occasionally babbling to it like it was a friend. Listen, Malik, I want you and your mother to sit up here with us for the rest of the flight. There's an empty seat beside me. I'd like to talk more if that's okay. Malik glanced at the flight attendant, then back at Daniel. I gotta ask my mama first. She says I always gotta ask permission before I accept things from people. Your mother is a wise woman. Please go ask her. I'll wait. Malik practically ran back through the curtains, his heart pounding with excitement. When he got to their seats, Amina took one look at his face and stood up immediately. What happened? Are you all right? Did they... Mama, I helped her. The baby stopped crying and she laughed, and now the man wants us to come sit in first class with them. The words tumbled out so fast they almost ran together. Amina's expression shifted from concern to confusion to something that looked like worry. Baby, slow down. Who wants us to sit where? Mr. Grayson, the baby's daddy, he said there's an empty seat and he wants to talk. Can we, Mama? Please? Amina looked toward the front of the plane where she could just barely see the curtains separating their world from that one. Every instinct told her to say no, to keep her head down, to not get involved with rich white folks who might be kind one minute and cruel the next. She'd seen it too many times, but she'd also raised her son to be brave, to use his gifts, to help where he could. How could she tell him no now? All right, she said finally, gathering their bags. But Malik, you stay close to me, and remember. I know, Mama. Best behavior. They made their way forward, and when they passed through that final curtain into first class, Amina felt like she'd stepped into a different universe. She was acutely aware of her discount store dress, her practical shoes, her hands that were rough from work. Daniel stood when he saw them approach, Ella still in his arms. The baby was calm now, clutching the wooden rattle like treasure. Up close, Amina could see the exhaustion in his face, the grief carved into the lines around his eyes. She'd seen that look before, in her own mirror after Malik's father left. Mrs. Johnson? Daniel extended his hand. I'm Daniel Grayson. Your son just performed a miracle. It's just Miss Johnson, Amina said, shaking his hand firmly. And Malik's a good boy. Always has been. Please, sit. Daniel gestured to the empty seat beside him. I can't thank you enough for letting him help. I was at the end of my rope. As they settled in, Ella immediately leaned toward Malik, showing him the rattle and babbling something in toddler language. Malik gently shook it for her again, and she clapped her hands. She really loves it, Daniel said, watching his daughter with wonder. She hasn't smiled like this in so long. How did you know it would work? I didn't know for sure, Malik admitted. But my cousin Marcus, after Aunt Sheila passed, he cried all the time. Uncle James tried everything. Toys from the store, music, videos, nothing worked. Then I made him this rattle in my workshop class, and something about it just calmed him down. I think maybe it's 'cause it's simple. Babies get overwhelmed when there's too much going on. Daniel thought about Ella's nursery at home, filled with electronic toys that lit up and played music, expensive mobiles that projected stars on the ceiling, every gadget the internet said was essential. But a simple piece of wood, made by a child's hands, had reached her in a way nothing else could. You made this yourself? Daniel asked, examining the rattle more closely. The craftsmanship was impressive. Each piece fitted together perfectly. Yes, sir, Mr. Patterson, he runs the community center workshop. He taught me. Or he did, before they cut the funding. Now he just lets me use his garage sometimes. The community center lost funding? Amina interjected gently. Baby, Mr. Grayson doesn't need to hear about all that. No, please, Daniel said. I want to know. I want to understand. Amina hesitated, then spoke. A lot of programs got cut in our neighborhood last year. The after-school workshops, the library hours, the summer camp. Malik loved that workshop. He'd spend hours there building things, learning. He's got a gift for it. But now, she shrugged, we make do. Daniel felt something twist in his gut. His company had just spent $15 million on a new office building with a rooftop garden and artisanal coffee bar. What school does Malik go to? Washington Elementary. It's not fancy, but the teachers do their best with what they have. Mama works real hard, Malik added, looking at his mother with pure admiration. She works at the hospital during the day and cleans offices at night, and she still helps me with my homework every single day, even when she's tired. Amina put her hand on Malik's knee. That's enough, baby. But Daniel shook his head. No, it's not enough. Not nearly enough. He looked at Amina. Miss Johnson, can I ask what you're doing while Malik's at the summer program? I found a small efficiency to rent for the 6 weeks. I'll work at a temp agency during the day. My sister back home is sending a little money to help. We'll manage. The flight attendant appeared with drinks. Champagne, Mr. Grayson. And what can I get for our guests? Mama, can I have apple juice? May I have apple juice? Amina corrected gently. May I? Yes, baby. Daniel watched this exchange, this small moment of parenting done right, and felt his inadequacy like a weight. Miss Johnson, would you like something? Please, anything. Water would be fine, thank you. As the attendant left, Ella started fussing a bit, and without thinking, Malik started singing. Not the humming from before, but actual words, a lullaby about stars and dreams. His voice was clear and sweet, and Ella's eyes started to droop. You have a beautiful voice, Daniel said when the song ended. Malik shrugged, embarrassed. Mama sings at church sometimes. I learned from her. He has a gift for music too, Amina said, pride creeping into her voice despite her attempts to stay humble. Teacher says he could make something of it if we could afford lessons, but his real passion is building things, figuring out how things work. When he was 6, he took apart our toaster and put it back together. Scared me half to death, but it worked even better after. Daniel laughed, a real laugh, the first one in months. My mother would have killed me if I'd done that. Oh, I wanted to, Amina said with a smile. But his teacher said that kind of curiosity should be encouraged, so now I just hide the important appliances. They all laughed, and even Ella giggled, though she probably didn't understand why. The cabin felt warmer somehow, lighter. Other passengers had gone back to their movies and magazines, but Daniel felt like he was exactly where he needed to be. Tell me about the summer program, Daniel said to Malik. What are you most excited about? Malik's whole face lit up. They have a robotics lab and a 3D printer. We're going to learn coding and engineering and get to build actual robots. I've been reading about it for months. There's this one project where we might design toys for kids with disabilities, making things that are easier for them to hold or that make sounds for kids who can't see well. I already have so many ideas. Toys for kids with disabilities, Daniel repeated slowly. His company had a whole division for accessibility and software, but toys? That was something else, something beautiful. That's incredible, Malik. I just think everybody should get to play, you know? It ain't fair that some kids can't use regular toys because they're not made for them. Isn't fair, Amina corrected. Isn't fair, Malik repeated dutifully. Daniel looked at this 9-year-old boy who had more vision and heart than most of the executives in his boardroom. An idea was forming in his mind, something big, but he pushed it aside for now. For this moment, he just wanted to sit here with these good people and feel something other than grief. The rest of the flight passed in a blur of conversation. Malik told Daniel about his favorite subjects in school, about the science fair project he'd won last year involving solar panels made from recycled materials. Amina shared stories about Malik as a toddler, always taking things apart, always asking why. Daniel found himself opening up too, talking about Sarah in a way he hadn't been able to with anyone else. She was a teacher. Daniel said, his voice soft as Ella dozed against his chest. Third grade. She always said kids from neighborhoods like yours, Malik, they just needed someone to believe in them. She volunteered at 3 different schools, spent her own money on supplies. When she got sick, her students made her cards, hundreds of them. I have them all in boxes at home. I can't bring myself to read most of them. She sounds like she was real special, Amina said gently. She was, and I was always too busy to appreciate it. Too many meetings, too many deals to close. I kept thinking there'd be time later, and then there wasn't. His voice cracked. I don't even know how to be a father without her. Look at today. I couldn't even comfort my own daughter. But you're here, Amina said. You're trying. That's what matters. My Malik's daddy, he left when Malik was 2, sent a check twice, then nothing. You're here, on this plane, taking your baby where she needs to go. You're doing better than you think. Daniel looked at Ella, sleeping peacefully now with the wooden rattle still clutched in her tiny hand. A 9-year-old boy did in 5 minutes what I couldn't do in an hour. That's because you were trying too hard, Malik said. Everyone looked at him, and he squirmed a bit under the attention. I mean, sometimes grown-ups forget that simple is better. You probably tried to fix everything at once. But babies, they just need one thing to focus on, one sound, one toy. My teacher calls it sensory overload when there's too much going on. Your teacher is right, Daniel said, and you're wise beyond your years, Malik. Mama says that too, but I'm really just 9. They laughed again, and Daniel realized his face actually hurt from smiling. When was the last time that happened? As they began their descent into San Francisco, Daniel made a decision. He pulled out his phone and typed quickly, then looked at Amina. Miss Johnson, I know this is sudden, but would you be willing to give me your contact information? I'd like to stay in touch, if that's all right. Amina's guard went up slightly. Why would you want to do that, Mr. Grayson? Daniel appreciated her directness. Because your son gave my daughter something precious today. Peace. Joy. And I'd like to return that kindness if you'll let me. I want to help with the summer program expenses, the efficiency rental, the temp work, all of it. Please let me do this. Mr. Grayson, we don't need charity. It's not charity, Daniel interrupted gently. It's gratitude and investment. Malik has a gift, Miss Johnson, a real gift, not just for building things, but for understanding people, for caring. The world needs more people like him. Let me help him reach his potential. Amina's eyes filled with tears. She'd fought so hard for so long to give Malik opportunities. To hear someone else see what she saw in her boy, it overwhelmed her. I need to think about it. Of course, no pressure, but please at least let me cover the efficiency rental for the 6 weeks. Consider it payment for the rattle. Ella's keeping it, if that's okay with Malik. She can have it, Malik said immediately. I can make another one. I want her to have it. Ella stirred then, waking up as the plane's wheels touched down. She looked around, momentarily confused, then saw Malik and smiled. She held up the rattle and shook it, proud of herself. That's right, Ella, Malik said. You got it. Daniel felt his throat tighten with emotion. His daughter was smiling, really, truly smiling. Because of this kind, brilliant child and his mother who had raised him right despite every obstacle. As they disembarked, Daniel insisted on helping with their bags. His driver was waiting with the town cars, and Daniel asked if he could give them a ride to wherever they were going. The bus stops right outside, Amina said. We'll be fine. Mama, his car has a TV in it, Malik whispered, not quite quietly enough. Daniel grinned. It does, and plenty of room for all of us. Please, Miss Johnson, it's the least I can do. Something in his eyes, a genuine plea, made Amina relent. All right, thank you. The driver loaded their modest bags alongside Daniel's expensive luggage without comment. Inside the car, Malik's eyes were huge, taking in the leather seats, the mini bar, the screens, but he sat perfectly still, hands folded in his lap, remembering his mother's lessons about behavior. You can relax, Malik, Daniel said with a smile. It's just a car. It's the nicest car I've ever seen, Malik breathed. They drove through San Francisco, and Daniel listened as Amina gave the driver the address of the efficiency apartment. It was in a neighborhood Daniel knew, not the worst, but far from the best. The kind of place people landed when they were doing everything right, but the system still stacked against them. When they arrived, Daniel got out to help with the bags. The building was old but clean, with a small garden out front that someone was trying to maintain. Amina unlocked the door to a studio apartment on the second floor. It was tiny, barely room for the pull-out couch and kitchenette, but it was clean and had a window that let in afternoon light. "It's perfect," Amina said, though Daniel could hear the forced brightness in her voice. "Mama, look, we can see the street from here." Malik was already at the window, his resilience and optimism shining through. Daniel pulled out his wallet and extracted a business card. "Miss Johnson, this has my personal cell number on it. Please call me if you need anything. Anything at all." And I meant what I said about helping. Amina took the card, studying it. "Why are you being so kind to us, Mr. Grayson?" "Really?" Daniel looked at Ella in his arms, then at Malik by the window, then back at Amina. "Because I've spent the last 6 months drowning, working 16-hour days so I don't have to think, hiring nannies so I don't have to feel, writing checks instead of being present. And today, your son showed me what I'd forgotten, that the most valuable things can't be bought. They have to be given freely. He gave my daughter a piece of his heart today, wrapped in wood and kindness. How do I not honor that?" Amina's eyes glistened. "You honor it by being the father your daughter needs. That's all." "I'm going to try," Daniel promised. "And I'm going to start by making sure Malik gets every opportunity he deserves. Please, think about what I said." After Daniel left, Amina sat on the edge of the pull-out couch and cried. Not from sadness, but from relief, from hope, from the overwhelming feeling that maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. Malik climbed up beside her. "Mama, why are you crying?" "Sometimes people cry when they're happy, baby. Today was a good day." "Yeah," Malik agreed. "I think Ella's going to be okay now, and her daddy too." The next week passed in a blur. Malik started the summer program and came home each day buzzing with excitement about circuits and codes and the 3D printer that could make anything he imagined. Amina found work at the temp agency, enough to cover food and basics. Then, on Friday evening, her phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Miss Johnson, it's Daniel Grayson. I hope I'm not calling at a bad time." "No, it's fine. Malik just got home from the program. He's been talking nonstop about the robot they're building. That's actually why I'm calling. I've been doing some thinking this week, and I'd like to propose something. Would you and Malik be willing to meet me for dinner tomorrow? There's someone I'd like you both to meet." Amina hesitated. "Mr. Grayson, I appreciate everything, but please, just hear me out. No obligations, no strings, just a conversation." Something in his voice reminded her of Malik when he had an idea he was excited about. "All right, where and when?" The restaurant Daniel chose was nice but not intimidating, a family place with good food and a relaxed atmosphere. When Amina and Malik arrived, Daniel was already there with Ella in a high chair. The baby's face lit up when she saw Malik, and she immediately held up the wooden rattle. "She carries it everywhere," Daniel said, standing to greet them. "The nanny tried to get her to put it down for her bath last night, and Ella had a complete meltdown. We had to compromise and let her hold it while she sat in the tub." Malik grinned and went straight to Ella, making faces that sent her into peals of laughter. "There's someone I want you to meet," Daniel said, gesturing to a woman sitting at the table. She was in her 50s, with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a practical bun. "This is Margaret Chen. She's the director of my company's foundation." Margaret stood and shook hands with Amina. "It's wonderful to meet you both. Daniel has told me an extraordinary story about your son." Over dinner, Daniel laid out his idea. His foundation wanted to create a new program, one that identified gifted children from underfunded schools and provided them with resources, mentorship, and opportunities. Not just scholarships, but real support. Workshop equipment, materials, access to professionals in their fields of interest. "And I want Malik to be our first participant," Daniel said. "Not just for the summer, but ongoing. We'll provide funding for Mr. Patterson to restart the community center workshop. We'll connect Malik with engineers and designers who can mentor him. When he's older, internships at my company if he's interested." Amina was shaking her head before he finished. "That's too much. We can't accept." "Why not?" Daniel asked. "Is it because of pride?" "Because I understand pride, Miss Johnson, but sometimes pride keeps us from accepting the help we need. And this isn't charity. This is investment in a child who has more vision and heart than most adults I know." What do you get out of it? Amina asked bluntly. Daniel smiled. Hope. Purpose. A chance to honor my wife's legacy by doing what she always did, believing in kids who deserve it. And honestly, Malik made my daughter laugh. He brought light back into our lives. How do you put a price on that? Margaret leaned forward. Miss Johnson, I've been running this foundation for 12 years. I've seen a lot of talented kids slip through the cracks because they didn't have half access to resources. Your son is special. Let us help him reach his potential. That's what Sarah Grayson would have wanted. The mention of Sarah's name seemed to decide it for Amina. She looked at Malik, who was still entertaining Ella, completely oblivious to the conversation about his future. Can I think about it? Of course, Daniel said. Take all the time you need. But later that night, back in the tiny efficiency, Malik asked his mother what they'd been talking about. Amina explained it all, watching her son's face carefully. What do you think? Baby, it's your life. You get a say. Malik was quiet for a long moment. Mama, do you think I can really do it? Build things that help people? Baby, I think you can do anything you set your mind to. Then I want to try. Not try. Not for me, but for all the kids like Marcus who need things that work for them. For kids like Ella who just need something simple and real. I want to build things that matter. Amina pulled him into a hug, her brilliant, beautiful boy with his enormous heart. Then we'll do it together. 3 years later, Malik stood in Daniel's office, now 13 and several inches taller. On the desk between them sat a prototype, a series of toys designed specifically for children with autism, each one carefully crafted to provide sensory input without overwhelming. Simple, beautiful, effective. The testing groups loved them, Daniel said, reviewing the reports. Every single child engaged, some of them for the first time in months, according to their parents. Malik beamed. We're really going to make them? For real? We're going to make them, and you're going to be listed as the lead designer. Malik Johnson, at 13 years old, is about to revolutionize therapeutic toys. I couldn't have done it without you giving me the chance, Mr. Grayson. Daniel, you can call me Daniel now. My mama would kill me, Malik said with a laugh. Daniel smiled. Amina now worked at his company headquarters, heading up community outreach. She'd been hesitant at first, but her skills at connecting with people, at understanding what communities actually needed, had made her invaluable. She'd expanded the foundation's reach to 12 different cities. How's Ella? Malik asked. She's great. First day of kindergarten next week. She insisted on bringing the rattle for show and tell. It's falling apart now, barely held together, dead, but she refuses to let it go. I can make her a new one. Don't you dare. That rattle is a reminder of something important, that the most valuable things in life can't be bought. They have to be given from the heart. Malik nodded, understanding more than most kids his age ever would. 5 years after that, Malik graduated high school at the top of his class with multiple scholarship offers. He chose MIT with full support from the Grayson Foundation. His toys were now in hospitals and therapy centers across the country, helping thousands of children. On graduation day, Daniel, Margaret, and Amina sat together in the audience. Ella, now 10, sat between them, still carrying a small wooden rattle in her backpack, even though it was held together mostly by tape now. When Malik crossed the stage, the whole section erupted in cheers. As he took his diploma, he looked out at his mama, at the people who had believed in him, and he felt his heart swell with gratitude. The valedictorian speech was given by another student, but afterward, Malik was asked to say a few words as the recipient of the Grayson Foundation's first full scholarship. He stood at the podium, looking out at hundreds of faces. When I was 9 years old, I was just a kid on a plane with a toy I'd made in a workshop class. I didn't know that one small act of kindness would change my whole life. But that's the thing about kindness. You never know where it leads. A baby was crying, and I had something that might help, so I offered it. That's all. But Mr. Grayson didn't see a poor kid from a struggling neighborhood. He saw potential, he saw possibility, and he invested in it. Not just with money, but with time, with mentorship, with belief. And my mama, who worked 2 jobs to give me opportunities, she taught me that helping others isn't about what you have. It's about what you give. So to everyone graduating today, I want to say this. You all have gifts. You all have something valuable to offer the world. Don't wait for permission to use them. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Just help where you can, when you can, with what you have. You never know whose life you might change. You never know how that moment might echo forward into the future. The audience rose in a standing ovation. Amina was crying, and so was Daniel. Even Margaret had tears in her eyes. After the ceremony, as everyone gathered for photos, Ella tugged on Malik's gown. Malik, I kept it safe. The rattle, it's still my favorite thing ever. Malik knelt down to her level. You know what, Ella? You keep that rattle as long as you need it. And when you're ready, maybe you'll pass it on to someone else who needs it. That's how kindness works. It just keeps moving forward. That evening, as Daniel tucked Ella into bed, she asked him a question. Daddy, do you think Mommy would have liked Malik? Daniel felt his throat tighten. He still missed Sarah every day, but the grief didn't drown him anymore. Baby, your mommy would have loved Malik. You know why? Because he's exactly the kind of person she believed in. Kind, smart, and determined to make the world better. I want to be like that too, Ella said sleepily, clutching her rattle. You already are, sweetheart. You already are. As Daniel walked out of Ella's room, he paused in the hallway, looking at the photo of Sarah on the wall. We did good, he whispered to her image. That boy you would have loved, he's changing the world. And our daughter is learning what really matters. I think you'd be proud. In his small apartment, Malik sat at his desk, sketching new designs. His mama was asleep in the next room, finally able to work just one job, finally able to rest. On his wall was a photo from that first day on the plane, one a flight attendant had snapped and sent to Daniel, who'd sent copies to them. Malik, young and small, holding the rattle while Ella laughed. He looked at that photo often, reminding himself that you didn't have to be rich or powerful to make a difference. Sometimes all it took was seeing someone in need and offering what you had, no matter how small it seemed. Because in the end, the richest hearts weren't the ones with the most money. They were the ones willing to give everything they had, expecting nothing in return. If this story touched your heart today, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss stories that remind us what really matters. Drop a comment below and tell us about a time when a small act of kindness changed everything for you. And smash that like button to help this message of hope reach someone who needs it today. Because just like Malik's simple wooden rattle, sometimes the smallest gestures create the biggest ripples. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that kindness still exists in this world. Thank you for watching, and remember, you have the power to be someone's miracle today.